it's ignorance, right? People don't know. Like, so I mean, it's, if we're gonna take out the Asian hate component of this and the despicable violent crimes that are surrounding this, take that out of the scenario for a moment.
We'll put it back in a minute, but yeah.
And let's just talk about, okay, so a good percentage of Americans, probably most Americans, for sure most Americans, they're not going to be able to tell the difference between a Filipino guy and a Chinese guy and a Thai guy and a Korean person and a Japanese person. That's just a thing, and I don't think we can expect your average American to be able to do that, because
isn't that
it's not their world, man. Your average American, they don't have a Korean friend, a Japanese friend, a Chinese friend, and a Filipino friend. It's not a thing.
If you live on the coast, if you live on the coast, you probably do. But you're right. For most Americans, it's probably not a thing.
But I mean, not even on the coast, man. I mean, LA isn't all just like liberal internationals and people hanging out. There's a lot of conservatives that live in the Los Angeles metropolitan area. And there's a lot of people that stick to kind of their own groups. So it's not just a coastal thing.
Now that I think about it, and we're talking about it, maybe it's not something that we need most of American to be able to acknowledge and differentiate between, for them to at least be able to respect.
Acknowledge that there is a difference between these countries.
Acknowledge it, and if you can't tell the difference, that's okay, right? But it's all about educating. For example, as someone who is from South America, or someone who's from Mexico, right, or someone who's from, let's say, I don't know where.
Yeah,
Uruguay.
I mean, can you tell us the difference between somebody from Bolivia and Peru?
Exactly, like,
and you cannot.
And that's maybe not necessary for them to at least respect the person who is from Bolivia or Peru and ask them, "Are you from Bolivia or Peru?" But even that seems like a lot to ask. I think right now I just like to ask them to stop punching us in the face, and pushing our grandparents to the ground, like.
Yeah. Another thing that kind of happened that was going along with all this, when I guess the Asian American and Asian community in general was rising up to talk about this. One thing I saw that I wasn't sure about, and please feel free to give me your input.
Sure.
People started getting pretty angry about getting our names right. That whole thing. Like getting Asian names right. And I was kind of like, whoa. I mean, again, and this kind of goes back to what I was saying before. Like, I'm part Asian, have lived in Asia since 2006.
It's a long time, Justin.
Right?
And
guess what? Yeah, it's a long time. And guess what? Horrible at Asian names. Horrible. You know this. We host Asia's Got Talent. And what am I really bad at? Pronouncing Asian names.
Asian names.
All of them. Yeah. So when I see they're meaning well, like learn our names, know our culture. I'm like, hey, like I can't even pronounce these names properly, and I've lived in Asia for this long, and I'm part Asian, and like let's, I get everybody's angry, I get everybody wants respect, but let's not like be ridiculous.
So,
what are your thoughts?
I'm familiar with what you're talking about. I don't know the specifics of who you heard talking about this, but
several.
I'll say that it depends. Just like you said, we can't expect the average American to differentiate between a Chinese person and a Japanese person just by looking at them. I don't think we can expect the average American to pronounce any Thai name, probably.
Most Vietnamese
names.
Most of them can't pronounce Spanish names properly.
Yeah, exactly.
And you want them to get Asian names, right?
So
let's baby steps.
but here's my caveat, and tell me if you agree with this. So average American, no, I don't expect them to be able to pronounce a Thai name or a Vietnamese name just off the cuff, right? But if you're a news anchor and you're reporting on a hate crime that happened, and you can't pronounce the victim's name correctly, is it different? Because my thing would be like, within the media set and as a professional, I think specifically because maybe the victim was severely injured, or either way, the victim has a right to have their name to be pronounced as best as that damn anchor or news person can do it.
I think not enough effort goes into it. Agreed.
Okay.
When it's happening, I mean, news anchors are often very busy, I would imagine. And so maybe there's not enough time on occasion for somebody to help them with the name. And also it's going to require more effort. Like there may not be a Thai person in the office that knows how to say the name. So somebody's got to make some calls and figure that out. And people are busy in work, and sometimes it just doesn't happen. But if you know there's going to be a name that you're going to have to say over and over again because it's attached to a certain story or because there's a victim involved, so yeah, more effort needs to be made to get those names right. At least make it seem like you're putting forth effort and not just randomly throwing stuff out there. That I get, yeah.
And again, though, we're talking ideally, right? We're talking ideally, because we need to point out that a lot of Republican lawmakers can't even pronounce our vice president's name correctly. So,
yeah,
I mean, they probably do that on purpose, but again,
sometimes they're doing it on purpose. I don't think initially they were doing it on purpose so much, and then because the left made it a really big deal, then they started doing it on purpose to poke at them.
Yeah,
that's just political.
That's a whole other podcast. A whole other podcast.